Good morning.
Welcome to the 2024 VM Workshop. It's 8:31, and then some people know that glad to have everybody back in Richmond, Virginia. Welcome to the humidity. It will get worse before the week's over. I just want to say that we're very happy to have everybody here. We got a great crowd the rest of the week. Big attendee list, great sessions planned for everybody, and I'm going to take about 11 minutes just to get you started. Just some little tidbits. You might want to memorize this list. You might be asked about it later and win a valuable prize, but Virginia's known for a lot of different things, and pride in the presidents that were born here in Virginia. There's a whole lot of stuff. VM Workshop volunteers, I'll get you to wave your hand. We're all wearing the orange name tags. This group meets weekly to plan this event. We start in the fall, meeting monthly, and then at the turn of the year, we meet every week to try to get coordinated on not just the location and the session, but the events that we'll have, the catering. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's no way possible we could do this without these volunteers. So I thank you all for helping me this year. It's been a great experience again. The reason we can do these workshops and get in here at a very low attendance fee is because of our sponsors. They're the core of being able to go to a university, feed you very well, a nice dinner, provide you the nice and bright yellow polo shirts this year that look great, celebrating the 60th anniversary of the mainframe across the top. Very good, something to take away. They also contribute to the sessions that are unique to this establishment here, these groups here. You don't get this training anywhere else. You know, this is probably the largest group that has the technical savvy and the technical outlay of experience of being involved. So I thank them very much. And here they all are. So my ask is simply talk to them, thank them for their sponsorship, continued sponsorship. I want to welcome a new sponsor, Rocket Software, this year has joined the group. Very happy to have them on board. Stop by Cole's booth and talk to you a little bit about what they're doing in the software space. But again, my thanks to the sponsors, and I hope you'll follow up and thank them as well. We're back at VCU, our host again this year. They're a great university. They've got a huge mainframe initiative going on. Both Len Santillechita and Professor Bob will help you. Dahlberg will help you know more about that. They're very excited about that program. So talk to them what they're doing from the university standpoint. It's kind of unique arrangement for a business side of it and an education side of it and a research side of it. They've been working on it for a long time, and I for one am glad to see that they're pushing along on that. This year, the VM Workshop organization decided to create a commemorative award called the Fallen Knight Award. We lost Dave Jones earlier last year, and we thought it'd be a great thing to establish some kind of recognition program for what Dave stood for. You know, if those that knew Dave, he was a great educator, great guy to talk to, always there if you needed anything, and I mean anything. And so this year, we've created this program. It's not a scholarship, but it's a monetary award that we're gonna present to a student that's attending. And by that, can I get the students to raise their hand? Real high. Okay, great. I think we have 8 that will show up eventually. Talk to them. Tell them what a great job you have. Tell them what a great future they have in IT, especially in the mainframe space. Because I don't know about you, but I probably am not going to do this the rest of my entire life. If I die doing it, that'll be a great thing. I won't mind that a bit. But bring them on board. Answer their questions. And again, just do what we do as a community and share and learn and network. Generally, I don't read anything by script that I'm going to because I don't want to miss anything here. This new commemorative award honors exceptional Knights of VM that have passed on, who have had a continuous impact on the VM community in general, and the VM Workshop in particular. The recipient of this award will receive funds to assist them in their educational pursuits. So that's the goal, is to give them a little something that'll help them buy books or take online courses or come to other workshops. And the first honoree is Dave Jones, Sir Dave the Generous. Many of us in this room have a story that Dave is a part of. I personally met Dave in 2014 at the VM workshop, we presented an IBM terminal server for Linux. And I'm thinking, boy, that's got to be fun. He made it so. He really did, and I learned a lot in that class. His unique delivery style made it easy to pay attention and to learn, and I made certain I went to all of his follow-up VM workshop presentations. This year's recipient will be a student attending this workshop who exhibits Dave's spirit of helpfulness and encouragement, interest in the mainframe platform, and who has an ambition to pay it forward in their future years, as with the nature of Dave to do so. So we're going to talk about Dave again at the closing. I hope you all attend that closing. Bill has a really unique video to share. It's very touching. And I want to talk about this slide, but I can't without just choking up so terribly. Talking to his wife, Karen, and Bill's had conversations with her as well. She explains the passion that Dave had for what he did from a very personal level. So we'll move on from that. But again, students are the focus. Dave is in our memories and moving forward, and we want to keep Dave's spirit alive as long as we can. Okay, workshop schedule. You have it up here. Sponsor areas on the second floor. Meals will be on the second floor. Reception dinners tonight over at the STEM building. If you have a dietary restriction need, gluten-free, vegetarian, or vegan, and you haven't signed up at the registration desk, please see Kate and make sure you get your request in. If not, you might not be available because they prepare these meals by request. We want to make sure you get what you need over there. So that's what's that. I mentioned workshop closing. We hope you're all there. Session schedule is on the SCED app. If you don't have the SCED app, we have it printed on the second deck and the first floor laid out for you. I was trying to be funny and put it up here so you all can take a picture. My humor's deceived me. More information, Wi-Fi, if you haven't already done that. The scan gets you to their website to tell you how to get on, but it's VCU guest. You have to register with an email address, accept the long verbiage that some attorney was paid to do, probably a law student, and then you're on the Wi-Fi. If you disconnect, you're gonna have to go through that whole process again. It doesn't keep a cookie on you or anything like that. PDFs that'll be of the presentations this week will be available sometime in July, as will the sessions that are being recorded by Bill. They'll be available sometime in the month of July as well. Except for this session, please don't bring food into the classrooms, to the session rooms. I must have heard it 16 times. Every time we were negotiating rooms, I heard that. They're very stickly about that. Sodas and drinks and stuff, if you got to cover on, that's fine. But at lunchtime, please don't take your lunch into a session room and start lunching on it. I'd ask for your cooperation. I appreciate it very much. So now I'm going to invite Lynn Santalucia up. If you haven't noticed, he's got a 64 Mustang sitting outside. Take your shoes off before you get in it. Wipe the stuff off of your shirt if you touch the hood. Lynn's going to introduce our keynote and guest speakers today, and I thank you both for being here. Thank you all very much.
As I look across the room, it's like old home week here. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, what do you want with your Mustang?
Raffle tickets for the Mustangs? Everybody's been saying that. You kidding me?
I put you on the spot.
Oh, no, Max. No. Well, it's good to see all of you. Just a couple of quick fun facts, and then I'm going to introduce Matt and Frank. April 7th, 1964. What date was that? Tuesday. Mainframe 360 internounced, right? Okay. April 11th, 1964. What date was that? That's the date that car out there. And long story, but I was born in 1953 and I wanted to get a Corvette because that's the year the Corvette was born, same month the year as me. But they'd like $500,000 these days. because they only made 300 of them. But this was a little bit more affordable, and I said, you know, it still has meaning to me because it was born the same time that the mainframe was born. And then when they decided to have it here, it lined up real good. The 60th anniversary of both machines. So, okay. And then this year, another fun fact. Is Dave Simpson in here? Mm-hmm. There he is. David, I understand you're celebrating a quarter century with IBM. Is that true? Yeah. Oh, congratulations. And I say that because that shows for the young people in the room that it is a very nice career, not just a job, but a career, right, Dave? 25 years. And this old guy standing in front of you today, this is my 51st year. So it's been a great ride. So if anybody's worried about the longevity of working with the mainframe, don't worry about it. It's here for a long time. And now let me introduce everybody. Okay, first kid on the block. Matt Whitbourne. Matt, raise your hand. You'll see Matt up here in just a minute. Matt is the Director of Product Management for Operating Systems and Virtualization on IBM Z and Linux One, and is responsible for the business strategy and market execution for offerings including ZOS, ZVM, Linux on Z, and our distribution relationships, and is also Synergy Executive for IBM Infrastructure, working with Red Hat. Prior to his role, Matt was the product lead for IBM Z15 and has fulfilled a number of product leadership roles in IBM across the areas as diverse as CICS and IBM AIOps portfolio to digital marketing and campaign automation. And I remember Matt when he first came here from the other side of the pond.
Yep.
It's been great working with Matt ever since then. Now we have another kid on the block. Frank, where are you?
Right here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Frank Robyck is the program director for ZVM and hypervisor development. Frank is responsible for the development and service of the overall ZVM product, which I think everybody has some things to say about ZVM. This guy right here. All right? As well as some hypervisor technical strategy and development. Prior to his role, Frank was most recently led the development for the HMC on Z after serving several functional manager roles in system test, ZOS, and new technology introductions, all on Z. And finally, which I think is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned, he is the proud dad of 3 daughters and a new papa to 3 grandchildren. Congratulations. So, when do we get started?
Wow. Let's do it. Brilliant. Okay, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning. Excellent. Hey, thank you so much for inviting me to be down here today. It's a privilege to get to open things. As Len said, as you can probably tell from the accent, I'm not originally from these shores. I'm originally from the UK. I actually started working mainframe back in '99, back on KICS, or CICS, what people tend to call it around here. And I kind of think about my journey like on Z as a bit like, you remember that line in The Godfather Part 3? It's like, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Because I started off in KICS. I went away and did some different things, like for a while I came back to KICS, actually in product management. That was actually how I got involved in the business side of things. Then I went, as Len said, I went and worked in digital marketing and campaign management when IBM actually purchased some offerings around, or purchased some companies around there, which was fascinating. And then I found myself back on the mainframe again. I found myself in the AIOps portfolio, what many of you will think of as previously the Tivoli side of the house. And then it was 2018 when I was requested, politely asked, would I be interested in becoming the product manager for Z15? And that meant moving to Poughkeepsie. And it was the most fantastic experience that I've had, like in my career. So I feel like I'm I'm slowly ticking the boxes in terms of subsystems, software and hardware. I get to tick another box with being with all of you guys today as well. And the other reason why I mentioned why I'm from the UK is over the course of the next 30, 40 minutes or so, you will find at times I will use Z and Z interchangeably. I've tried over many years just to settle on one of them. I can't do it. I don't know when it's going to come out. It's just going to happen. So please roll with it as I go through this. The second thing I just wanted to mention as we get going is I do these kind of presentations a reasonable amount. And it's interesting because often there's a question of like, do I go with the orange or do I go with the blue? So, and for those who aren't initiated, it basically means, do I go with IBM Z or do I go with Linux One? Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is going to be equally applicable, like in both cases, and I'll try and make it obvious where it's a little bit different. But the interesting thing, especially with this audience here, it actually gave me a real dilemma, because when I think about VM and the relevance that it plays, it really is the fundamental bridge between both of those worlds. So it gave me a little bit of a headache. But that being said, you can see there's orange on the chart, there's orange on the shirt, there's orange on my watch today. So we're going to roll with this one, but there's going to be a lot of it to do with Z as well as I go through this. So there's three things I just wanted to give you a bit of an update on today before I hand over to Frank and Frederik, who are going to give a bit of perspective of what's happening with ZVM and some of our directions there. So one of them is I wanted to give you a little bit on the state of the business, the health of the mainframe right now. Second thing is talk about where we are in terms of not just our hybrid cloud strategy, but what we're seeing in terms of patterns of deployments with our clients right now and some of the emerging trends. And then also an important topic for me as well, which is around what we're driving as a business regarding simplification. And I've got to say a massive thank you to you guys here at the workshop, because I was delighted when we got to show hands with the students who are in the room as well, because one of the things we want to be able to address is what is it we're going to be able to do, not just as a company, but importantly, I think as an ecosystem, to try and make the mainframe more and more accessible in the future from a skill standpoint. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about where we are in terms of the business right now. So what can I say? We're in a pretty good spot right now. When you look at how Z16 is performing in the market, and when I talk about Z16, I'm thinking about this entire generation of systems, including Linux One as well. We're in a very positive place. So from a revenue standpoint, we are exceeding the program that we had on Z15, which is great. Got to be honest, Z15 was my program, so part of me kind of liked having that record for a while. That's been taken away from me now. But that was a very successful program as well. That was the most successful Z that we had in 2 decades. I put up here the revenue number, not to brag, like from what we're achieving like as a company, but really this is about the investment that our clients are making in the technology. And if you couple that as well with the next piece to do with what we're seeing in terms of MIPS, this for me is actually what is even more important, because it's not just about people refreshing the technology and being current on the hardware and current on the platform. It's about the investments that people are making in terms of putting new workloads actually on Z and on Linux One as well, which is absolutely key to us. In fact, if you've seen some presentations from IBM in the past, sometimes we show like this, there's like a stacked MIPS graph that we have on there, and we talk about the growth that we're seeing in terms of traditional MIPS workloads that's running on CPs, and we talk about the growth that we're seeing in specialty processors as well, so IFLs and Zs. So the good thing is both of those continue to grow over time, but the interesting thing for me is that the amount of specialty workloads that we're seeing right now, and a lot of that being heavily driven by Linux, we now have more installed MIPS on specialty engines than we do on the classic ones. They're all growing, but that rate and pace that we're seeing there is really accelerating. Where are we seeing that? We're seeing that in a few different categories of our clients across the market. So one of them is, as I mentioned, we are continuing to see organic growth with traditional workloads. That's continuing at a very, very good pace. We're also seeing more and more new workloads that are co-located with the mainframe. So things where it makes sense to extend either existing transaction processing or data serving as well. We've also seen some examples, especially of some of our traditional Z clients, who are standing up whole Linux One systems for running new workloads that actually have got nothing to do with their mainframe at all. I think, in fact, last year, I think when Kevin was here, he spoke a little bit about what City are doing with the likes of Mongo, which is a public story for us.
City guys are right over there.
I know, and thank you, Phil. So that's a great example in terms of it's just a great platform for running Linux. But also as well, we're seeing very new workloads coming and completely new clients, and in some cases people who have absolutely zero background on the mainframe at all. Now, some of that is in kind of adjacent areas, so in financial services, in the fintech space, we're seeing some people when it comes to things like digital assets, digital custody, how you can actually protect crypto technologies. We're seeing people actually wanting to get new Linux 1 boxes. Why? Because they just want the most secure digital bank vault that they can possibly have in their enterprise. We're also seeing some very exciting, completely different use cases as well. So one of the things that I like in particular is there's a tax agency in Europe right now who are using Linux 1 and they're using AI to actually look at aerial screenshots of residential properties to see if the footprints have actually increased on them, to see whether people are still paying the appropriate amount of tax. Now I can see some people sweating in the room. I don't think the technology's made it over here yet. But when you look at that kind of workload, that's something very, very different to what we're used to in terms of core transaction processing and data serving. And if there's one stat that I can give you guys that you should take away, tell your colleagues, tell your partners, tell your friends and family, because it actually helps explain some of you guys what you do for a living. How in the world's economy of IBM? So around 70% of the world's transactions by value run on the mainframe. That was a third party who came up with that statistic for us. So when I try and explain to people, what I do for a living, I usually anchor on this spot. And they don't believe you for a while, then you slowly explain what we do and why we do what we do and why we've been around for so long, and then people start realizing the relevance of the platform. In terms of the portfolio itself, we've had this different choice in form factor for a while, letting customers choose what's most appropriate for them. I was around in Z15 when we made the leap of going from the old 24-inch frames that we used to have on the high-end systems, and we decided we were going to go in and standardize that onto the standard floor space tiles in a 19-inch form factor. The big innovation that we've seen on here as well really is the rack mount solution. This has been really exciting for us. Again, you could take this, you could overlay IBM Z, the same story is true, just instead of Emperor 4, think of it as Z16. But really, it's actually on the Linux side of things where we're seeing most of the growth when it comes to the rack mount side of things. Because it's great actually for us to get into new accounts and into new clients where a particular space is at a premium. So really big improvements when it comes to the form factors that we have, and lots of choice really in the market as well for new adoption. So let's talk a little bit in terms of where we're heading in the future and where our investment strategy is from the platform. One of the important things I think when it comes to Z, when it comes to Linux 1, is really making sure we focus on our strengths. We don't try to be all things to all people. So we know our sweet spot in particular around data serving, transaction processing, and workloads that are adjacent with that are really important. But this gives you just sort of a flavor of just where, as a platform, and I'm talking both hardware and software, we continue to invest and what's important for us. So system performance is always going to be at the core of what we do. And we can think about that from a few different dimensions. So firstly, we're always striving to make sure that we can improve the single thread performance on every generation of the system that we provide. We're also looking at how much we can actually scale within a single box. We have 200 client configurable cores in the most recent system. We get the question at times of are people really pushing the limits of that? Yes, some of our very big customers are. So we're looking to increase that. One of the other big improvements with Z16 as well was the amount of capacity you could actually run in a single drawer as well. So we're looking at across all of those different dimensions, every single generation about what we could do to improve. Resilience is always going to be another fundamental part of the platform across Z and Linux 1. You guys might know this, but we're now talking in terms of 8 nines of availability in terms of our resilience, which is equivalent of 0.3 seconds of downtime a year. I'm continuing to argue with the lawyers and saying, we're at 0.3 now. Can't we really say 0 downtime? Because that's kind of what IBM Z is. They say no. So we'll still talk in terms of 0.3 milliseconds. But we know it's fundamental for us, and that, again, that's an average. So obviously, a lot of people, can go years and years without any downtime in the system. Security and data privacy, we continue to be the most securable system on the planet. And especially when I think about the innovations that we put in on the Linux side as well, things like confidential computing has been absolutely fundamental, and it's been one of the reasons why we're continuing to attract new clients because of our value prop when it comes to security. And then if you think about what we do in terms of dedicated workload accelerators, and then coupled with optimizations that we make across the stack, this is another thing that's really key for us. We're making strategic bets in terms of what do we think are the accelerators we need to put in, not just for today's workload, but for tomorrow's workload. And the Telum accelerator, the AIU that we put in Z16 is a good example of that. It was funny, I had a client recently say to us like, oh, you only put the AIU in because of that market hype in ChatGPT. And so we had to say to them like, do you have any idea how long it takes to build hardware? It's like, software you can kind of get away with some of that stuff. You can bring things to the market reasonably quickly. It's like, we make investments years before we come to market in terms of the Z business and the Z hardware itself. So we're focused very heavily in terms of what's going to make a difference in the future. And then sustainability being another important topic. This is something we're increasingly seeing. This is a boardroom conversation right now about what is it that people are doing to lower the carbon footprint of the data center or of the enterprise as a whole. This is getting massive attention in Europe in particular, but what I'd say is that it's not just about sustainability, it's also just things as basic as energy efficiency. We're seeing more and more clients who are actually coming to us looking to consolidate workloads, Linux workloads onto Z and Linux One, frankly because they're running out of power coming into the data center. So if we look a little bit ahead to the future, you can see a flavor of some of the things that may or may not be coming around in the next generations of the system. There's going to be the move to 5 nanometers as an example, so we really are pushing the limits in terms of how small we can make these things now. But the interesting thing I wanted to point out here, and in fact this goes to the comment earlier in terms of the longevity of the platform and you know, looking ahead to the future about why it's a good bet to think about your career in the mainframe space. And this actually came up with a customer 2 days ago because we were talking to them about a new payment solution. And believe it or not, they wanted to talk to us about a 15-year contract. 15 years. Now, think back to where technology was 15 years ago. We're in a very different place now than we were 15 years ago. Nobody was talking about AI in any pragmatic sense the way that they are now. Now, as it turns out, of course, what they're really looking for is it's more about financial certainty in terms of their relationship. However, the interesting thing is we started thinking about this because every one of these future systems that you can see here, this is the commitment up at board level by IBM in terms of our investment here. So we're already committed to all of these. So we started thinking about it and went, well, actually, if you take the typical time frame between generations, and then if you also think about what we guarantee in terms of time of market, the serviceability of the systems, we thought about it and went, actually, do you know what? We can tell you that we can support you for 15 years. I don't know any other technology platform that can make that kind of commitment to customers. Nobody else can do that. And we can do, or let me put it this way, nobody else can do that with a straight face. We can do that with a straight face. And the other thing I wanted to call out as well is just, in terms of this, I hope you're all feeling this, it really feels like a renaissance for the mainframe right now, is the amount of industry recognition that we're getting right now. So various bodies who've got nothing to do with Z, and in some cases are quite far away, you know, even from enterprise IT. We're being recognized on multiple levels when it comes down to sustainability, which we've spoken about a little bit, the energy efficiency of the system. Typically we can run equivalent workloads from x86 at half the power footprint. What we've done with AI acceleration and the Telum processor, this goes right the way down to the actual design of the system, as in like the way that the doors look. We've won awards on there because, frankly, it's a beautiful system, and we've been recognized for that in the industry. And you can even see things like the way that we have observability in our monitoring solutions, dynamic partition manager for what we have on the likes of Linux on Z for configuring I/O and partitions as well. We're getting recognition, you know, across the board for what we're doing. So I'm definitely feeling that renaissance in the mainframe. Hopefully all of you guys are as well. So with that, let me switch gears a little bit and just tell you a little bit in terms of where we are from a hybrid cloud perspective. If you guys have been attending this, and I'm told there's a lot of repeat attendees for these particular conferences, I suspect you've probably seen this chart in some way, shape or form if IBM's been speaking about 17 times or something like that. But I wanted to call it up again because it does kind of underpin about what's important from us from a hybrid cloud perspective. Clearly from an infrastructure point of view, you know, Z and Linux One plays a key role there, but actually our relationship with Red Hat has been fundamental in terms of driving hybrid cloud adoption across so many of our enterprise clients. In my mind, I think we're getting to a point now where the vision and the reality of OpenShift is really coming together. We've always had the choice in terms of where you can actually run OpenShift. We've had OpenShift on the likes of Linux on Z for quite some time now. We also have it on the likes of ZCX on the mainframe. But for me, this comes to life when you actually do have the ability to move workloads as they make sense. And a lot of it, I think, really comes down to, from an industry standpoint, about what's mission critical to you. Now, some workloads you can think of, and I think it's pretty obvious, you know, like if you're a bank and your core banking works on Z, if your core banking stops working, you're not a bank anymore. Pretty fundamental. However, what we've seen more and more is that some people have started, you know, new applications, and maybe when they began, they didn't think they needed the qualities of service that they were going to need in the future. So maybe they started off running them on x86, maybe running them in public cloud as well. And what we found over time is that people have looked at those workloads and looked at those applications and suddenly started thinking, this is pretty fundamental to our business, actually. Like, you know, if we have some kind of issue with this, I mean, pick your poison, whether it's from a security standpoint, from a resilience standpoint, you know, how reliable, how available do you need this to be? What about scale? Like if you get sudden surges, you know, I can tell you, like as much as the cloud can talk about sort of elastic scale, our ability to act in Z systems, because we have the headroom built in, is uncomparable in terms of what we can do. So what we've seen more and more is people actually saying, do you know what? I didn't think of this as being mission critical. This is mission critical now. I wonder where's the best place to run my mission critical workloads. So one of the things that we've seen is people bringing workloads from the cloud actually back to IBM Z. Oh, sorry, yes, question.
What's the difference between KVM and Red Hat KVM? Are there two flavors of KVM?
I think it's more just that's. Oh, what are you going to answer?
So because OpenShift is a Red Hat product, Red Hat supports under Red Hat KVM OpenShift. That's the reason.
Great, thank you.
It's pretty much the same KVM, right?
No, it's not.
It's different. It's different.
You know what? The KVM underlying, or the support for KVM on C is done by the development lab in Germany, where I'm coming from. So those patches are submitted to open community, and every distribution partner is packaging what they want with those patches that we provide and build their own KVM. So it's typically 90+% the same, but you cannot guarantee it's absolutely the same. That's why OpenShift is supported for KVM.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Willie. But one of the big innovations, I think, is the fact that you now have multi-architecture support for the likes of Red Hat OpenShift. So that ability to actually say, you can now mix and match the architectures between your worker and control nodes. Again, this for me is actually realizing the promise of OpenShift and what we hope to be able to achieve with it. When it comes to the add-ons that we have, we're very pleased now we have a rich ecosystem in terms of what we're able to run on top of OpenShift as well. But also the other thing I wanted to point out is the ability for single node deployment of OpenShift 2. Because one of the things that we've seen over recent years is that the barrier to entry to get started can be quite expensive for running OpenShift on the platform. And the IBMers in the room will keep me honest on this. I think it's 6 IFLs in the... Yep, thank you. So 6 IFLs you would typically need for the multi-node setup. Now with the single node setup, because of the fact that you can also combine together control and compute nodes under a single cluster, you can get going only with 2 IFLs running in SMT2 mode. So this, if you've not looked at this, and maybe that's been one of the reasons in the past why you've not explored OpenShift, it's a good time to get going and explore with it. The other thing I wanted to talk about is where we are in terms of Ansible. How many people are using Ansible, like in their enterprise? Cool. Okay, good. Good show of hands. We're increasingly seeing Ansible being the standard way that clients are looking to automate, to provision and manage a lot of their systems and a lot of their environments. One of the big improvements, though, that we've made about 6 months ago is the fact that the Ansible automation platform itself is now fully deployable on Linux on Z as well. We'd had quite a lot of clients saying to us that I really want the ability to have Ansible managing my Z and my Linux One environment, but I don't want to rely on anything that's running off the platform. You know, I want to have this completely self-contained. Talk about things being mission critical, and it's like, this is automating all of my workloads and all of my environments. That's mission critical for me. So can you make sure that everything is able to run there? So now we have the ability, the Ansible automation platform, what used to be thought of as the tower, can actually run on Linux on Z or run on ZCX as well, for that matter. So much so, actually, that we've now had some customers saying to us, well, I thought about it from the point of view of using this to manage my Z and my Linux One environments, but actually, this is mission critical for my entire enterprise, and I'm putting it on the most resilient platform. Maybe I should actually just move the tower here and use it to actually manage out, like, into my data center as well, because there's nothing to stop you going in the opposite direction too. So for those of you who haven't played around with this, I think it's probably only a matter of time before you do. The other thing I should point out as well is there's a great set of ZVM playbooks as well that are available that you can get going with. And then the last thing I just wanted to cover a little bit is, what are we doing around simplification as a platform? And we put this up here, and this came from various studies that we've been doing. And I can see as well, like, we're going to get into a fun discussion of what does fully productive actually mean on here. But the comment that we had is that it's taking too long for people new to the platform to basically be productive. And also as well, I look at that from the point of view of, it's taking too long for everybody to be confident, you know, and that's for new people to be confident in themselves, and also for the more experienced people also to say, there's certain activities I can just fully delegate and say, I'm going to let you get on and do this. And so this is where it's not just an IBM thing, but it's something we need to think about as an ecosystem of partners and as a community as well, of how do we bring down the barrier to make people more productive more quickly. The reason why in particular this is important, and I say this as somebody who's, like I said, I've been at IBM like my entire career, and as I mentioned earlier, like most of my time like on the mainframe as well. This is not the typical pattern that a lot of people look for. There's always going to be people who want different things from their career. But the idea now that somebody says, hey, I might want to come in, I might want to do a role, I want to become good at it, I want to get some good experiences under my belt, some good achievements, and then I might want to go and do something a little bit different. And so what we're observing is what we think of like as a bit of a reverse bell curve. And there's this chasm like in the middle in terms of the intermediate sort of roles in particular. And so there's two ways we can kind of think about this. We can go around and tell everybody that they're wrong and that they should spend more time just being dedicated to one particular thing. I don't think that's going to work. Or we can try and work out, how do we actually make that intermediate step faster? Now, when I mentioned about the 2 to 7 years, I'm not saying everybody becomes an expert in 7 years. Of course they don't. However, we've got to try and find a way again to lower that barrier. So we've set ourselves this very bold goal. We are not going to achieve this overnight, just to be very clear about this. But how do we take somebody new to Z, especially our system programmer community, and make them productive within 6 months? Doesn't mean they can do absolutely everything, but how do we make sure that they themselves are feeling productive within 6 months of joining the platform? So with that, there's a few different aspects that we're looking at, and there's a lot that kind of sits underneath this. So one of them is what we're doing in terms of active learning. What we were observing is that the way that people want to experience and learn about new systems and new technologies, it's not the way that we used to do this. How many people here love read books? What a surprise. Believe it or not everybody wants to pick up a 300-page read book these days. That's not to say we're not going to keep doing them, because we know there's a wealth of information in some of these things. I've got to be honest, sometimes I look at them and I think, if we need a 300-page read book to use a particular product or offering, I don't think we've done a good enough job on the user experience. So that's kind of my take on that. However, the point here is that we need to provide more experiential learning in terms of actually using the platform. The good thing, thinking back to the likes of the VM side of things, that also means making it easier, I think, to have dev test environments that are closer to the production capabilities as well. So VM's clearly going to have a key role to play in that. The other thing we want to really look at is standardization. That comes down to a few different aspects, but definitely what is it that the industry trends and how do we bring them to the mainframe? So I mentioned about things like Ansible, like as an example. Other things are about where we're investing in things like infrastructure as code as well, so that the ways of working and the technologies that are out there, we can bridge them onto the mainframe as well. Just to be really clear, that doesn't mean losing the things that make us special. You know, I think one example that I often sort of go back to is things like Sysplex. Sysplex is a tremendously powerful technology. And we have some interesting debates at times of saying like, well, the rest of the industry might call it a cluster. We're like, well, it's more than a cluster really, isn't it? So we want to be careful in terms of still protecting the unique value in the system, but we've got to make it more accessible for people. The other thing is something that we're really undertaking, which is inside of IBM, which is really simplification by design. So I mentioned a little bit on the whole, if I need to give you a 300-page red book that goes with a product, I think we failed the usability of the product. We're really having a hard look in terms of not taking the shortcuts for things that we're doing as a platform now. And one of the interesting things, and this is where we'll definitely welcome over time the feedback from people in this room, the amount of parameters that we actually have available, the amount of little knobs and dials that you can twiddle in terms of the system. We've got to get rid of some of those. We need to figure out how do we just sort of make the decision for you. This is one of those things when we spoke to some of our other design councils around this, generally speaking, everybody says, that's a great idea. That's absolutely where you need to go. And then we go, so how about we get rid of this one then? And they go, no, not that one. So this is something where we're going to need your partnership to basically make sure that we can figure out sort of how to do this. And then the last thing I think is on the culture side of things. And what can I say? I mean, thanks to you guys, because the fact that you're already sort of blending together the amount of expertise in this room with students is exactly what we need to do here to try and bridge some of those gaps as well. But the last thing I just wanted to mention before I hand over to Frank and Frederik is a little bit in terms of something new, and this actually just GA'd yesterday, which is the What's Next assistant for Z. So what we've designed to do here is really two different things. So one of them is we want to actually give an assistant, especially for new to Z users, to help give them a Q&A service to better learn, better understanding context about what's happening and tasks that they need to do. But also as well, there is a skills builder. Skills is something that we call in this space. Think of it as like automation activities, so that from the assistant as well, you can actually trigger particular tasks and get them going as well. So this is something very new for us. Like I say, the first version is only just GA'd yesterday. And because I'm a brave person, I'm going to show you a quick example here. I'm not so brave that I'm doing a live demo, because that would be... but just as an example here of something that we did, how can I relocate a virtual machine from one SSI member to another? And it's going to come up now. And I'm going to say, using the VM relocate command, and you can see that there's an example with it as well. Now, the important thing when we do this is we show the sources of where we get the information from as well. And you can then click on each of the sources and it'll bring up where this information is, especially because you can then read around the subject, a little bit more to actually understand what it is, why is there this example. So that's one very quick example. I think we've got another one that we've just plugged in here as well. Again, and I'll give a bit more context about how mature we are at the moment. But is EVM a type 1 hypervisor? Second question that we've asked into here. It's going to come up. I feel like I should be asking the room. No, it's not a type 1 hypervisor. Type 2, which means it runs directly on top of the hardware and abstracts some of the resources for use by its guest operating systems. So I've put this here just to sort of show where we're going. Now, cards on the table. If I did a live demo here and said to you guys, give me some questions, if you're anything like me, you would ask the hardest possible questions in the world and think, I'm going to try and break this thing. So this is a new piece of technology that we're improving over time. It is very much focused on new to Z users right now. So, your jobs are safe for the time being, don't worry. But also, just to give you a view of where we're going, there's a number of different areas that are important for us. And I think just to call out a couple, one of them is customer-specific knowledge. Right now, this is designed to tell you about how Z and how Z works. It's not designed to tell you about how your Z works. That's the next step that we want to be able to take with this, so you can actually get intelligence relevant to your own system. Similarly as well, building in things like AI ops sort of use cases as well. So instead of just asking how to do particular things, how do you actually query, for example, like the health of the system or LPARs or KICS regions or whatever your flavor is. And then also in time, having these pre-built skills as well, so that you've got the ability to have more automation out of the box too. So something very exciting. It's early days, but just wanted to show you that ZVM is a key part of it as well. So before I hand over to Frank and Frederik, do come and say hello to me. I'm going to be around for the rest of the day. I'm going to be around at the breaks. Looking forward to the banquet later. There's one caveat on this, except between 12 and 2 o'clock, because England are playing in the football between 12 and 2 o'clock. Now, I don't know if this will stick, but I'm really going to try and watch it. So anyway, thank you very much, and let me hand over to Frank and Frederik.
So, it's tough to follow accent guy. Everybody loves an accent. But thanks, Matt. I even learn every time I listen to some of that stuff. But first of all, they call me the selfie king, so I gotta send this to prove that I was here. And then, thanks for this shirt. I mean, I don't know if I'm worthy of wearing it, but I'll have it on sometime before the end of the week. So who's up here? Frank, you heard my introduction. I came from firmware, so I was a hardware guy most of my career. And also 64 resonates too, because that's when I was born. I was born with a mainframe. I got a Mustang. I don't have a 64, but I got one of them. But so I'm kind of in that space too. And then my new chief product owner is Frederik Hartmann. So he came over from the pond. He came over the pond also, because when I took over for VM development, they said, you got to make things change. You got to fix that bathtub with the new people and the experienced people. And I said, I can really focus on that, but I'm going to need a technical lead to help me get things done in the space that you guys are talking about. I feel like coming in here with the experience that's going to be told around here, it's amazing. So you guys know more than I do. Frederik was grown up in VM as a programmer, and he offered to be a product owner. And I said, well, you got to come to Poughkeepsie. And so he's here now. Yeah. And he's staying for as long as, until I can get him married off or something. But at least 3+ years, Frederik will be the product owner with me. And we're going to work on things that matter to the VM system. So what I had here too is, so I just left a wedding about 6 or 7 months ago from my daughter, and I said, I need a raise of hands how many years you've been married. So it's a very similar thing. How many people here have less than 1 year experience in the mainframe or ZVM? Oh, we got 1, 2, there should be some students, right? Yep. A real low number. How about greater than 5 years? Less than 10 years, actually. Yeah, I'm still seeing hands. Less than 20. A few more. Less than 30. Still raising hands. Less than 40. Are we pushing that? Oh, we got it. That's probably the biggest number here, actually. Yeah. Now, how about less than 50? So, anybody? I didn't even write down 60. Is there less than it? There's a couple for 60. Wow, that's awesome. So what I wanted to say too is the VM's been a great product as far as I know. I mean, as far as the mainframe, everybody said the mainframe was going to die, so they also said that VM was gonna die. Well, you guys proved that it's definitely not true. So I think this week, what we're gonna do is I have a lot of my team here, experienced VMers that you can bounce questions off of. And we really want to get the feedback from you. Hopefully you learn something and use the expertise that is here and the expertise that is still working on my team. And I hope we can be, part of a good team together, partnership. And I see Uli is in the audience too. If we go to the next page. I do have a video that I would love to show you, because part of what I'm trying to do with bringing on the new people and filling in the experience and using the experienced people is we've been looking at archives. You should see the Poughkeepsie office of the VCR tapes. Some of the less than 5 years don't know what that is, but VCR tapes that have been converted to digital, and the red books, like Matt said, the documents. We had a hall. How big? That hallway was huge, right? Total, it was full of all the archive stuff that we've been putting in Building 8. I mean, there was boxes that we brought from Endicott, because Endicott actually is closed as a site anymore, but the workers are still there. So they can work remote, and some of them are here. Brian's here. So we've been looking at the archives and trying to come up with ways how we can teach the new people and fix that 2 to 7 year problem that Matt was mentioning. And then if you ask some of my experienced team members, they say it's way more than 7, but we're trying as hard as we can to come up with ways to do that. So see if that works.
VM is a wonderful operating system that has a great deal to
Look
offer.
at this from 1990.
Yes, it's in trouble. But you know something? VM has always been in trouble. That's why it's so good.
VM. So this guy's from Merrill Lynch, and he's trying to tell, back in the day, 1993, you from Merrill Lynch?
Yeah, I was.
Back in 1993, he addressed my old VM lab.
VM's always been in trouble, and that's why it's good. Because it had to always compete against
Give this a listen for a couple.
Other IBM
It's
platforms never did.
it was so relevant to me.
And, if you believe in this capitalist type stuff where competition makes better, that's why VM is the best thing IBM has. Because there's 2 models of economies. There's the Politburo style communist stuff, which has recently gone out of fashion even in Russia, right? Where the government says, this is what you will do. This is the one answer, and you wind up getting things that are non-competitive, bloated, fat, takes thousands of bureaucrats to run it, has millions of little rules, and if you put a comma in the wrong place, your Java bends. MVS. So you get these bloated, inefficient things. VM, I like to say, is the free enterprise operating system because it had to compete with external and internal competing systems in a way that nothing else on the marketplace has had to. If it weren't good, it would be dead now, because no one would have supported it. The things that kept VM alive, sometimes against the wishes of senior IBM management, was the fact that VM was so good that it generated incredible enthusiasm and loyalty. And it had good things that fed on good things and created more. That's why it's around. And this truth still exists. And it's just as true as it was years ago. And some other good things as well.
Look at, he's using foils for the young ones.
Wow.
Now, when we're talking about what is dead, I like to ask people what is dead. Anybody here hear of a former IBM named Hal Lauren? Show of hands. Okay, Hal's a great guy. He's one of my first teachers in operating systems. And he's such a funny and great speaker, and so insightful. He says, this is the era of morbid computing. Because everything is dead or dying, and everything we know now is untrue, or will be untrue soon. So they say, mainframe is dead, MVS is dead, VM is dead, DOS is dead. DOS, the type that runs under mainframes. DOS is dead, the type that runs on your PC. You even read Unix is dead, right? Because that was the cover of a September 1992 Byte magazine. Is Unix dead? Everything is dead or dying. What does it mean for everything to be dead or dying? Does it mean that people aren't spending money on it, making money off of it, having their businesses survive because of it? investing future money in it. What does it mean to be dead? Like the story about Mark Twain, the death of all these systems is somewhat much exaggerated. And while I like the idea, because it's a fun conceit to say, don't ask data processing people about computing the future, because we don't know, we've got all this stuff to unlearn. Ask your plumber or your lawyer, because or your kids, because they really know. There's truth to that, but it's also false, because the more things change, the more things really do remain the same. So it's nice to say every few years, everything has changed, throw away everything else. But it's not true. And we as an industry have no memory whatsoever, because there's every panacea that we've heard in the past 20 years that was going to solve everything and fix everything, and you know what? None of them ever did. Structured programming was going to solve the application backlog. Database was going to solve the application
You guys probably
backlog.
heard this before.
Case tools, very recently, were going to solve the application backlog. Workstations are going to do it.
But this is available out on the internet. I wanted to get to the one page, but it looks like we might have stopped here. But basically what it is the one page that I wanted to get to, it basically said, okay, what are your problems? Tell me what your biggest pain points are. It's just like a regular interaction with a client to find out what we can do next. So before we go to the next page, I want you guys to have a good couple days together. Give me the pain points, and we're going to focus on the strategy. You can go to the next page for VM as one of the hypervisors. If you want to talk about the other hypervisors, Ulrich Weigard is here. He can tell you everything right over here. He's at DE and IBM, and he owns the hypervisor strategy. For VM, on the next page, we're the most popular. So we are going to focus on being the data server as a hypervisor. So some of the stuff we might sunset because we can't afford to invest and be everything to everybody, but we're going to focus on the data serving, which is the most popular area. And with that, I wanted to hand over to Frederik to finish up the last two charts.
Thank you. As Frank already said, a part of our new journey is going to be to make more focused decisions on the future. It's going to be about improving VM where it matters. It is about driving the business forward. It's about technology forward. And we cannot be everything for everybody. The problem space is just too huge. And the reality of that would be that we would be nothing for nobody. So going forward, we will look at a couple of key areas together with you as part of the council or in action like here, with the objective to really improve in three key areas. The first one is the scalability. And when you have followed and looked at current memory support in the recent hardware generations, the increase in available memory has been tremendous. And VM hasn't caught up, but hopefully it will soon have and support way more memory than it ever has to really run and facilitate you running your workload, your database adjacent applications to a degree as well, because they matter too. And we're working on that, and we'll get there. Another key part is simplification. Basically making it feasible that a more junior operator or systems programmer is able to work with the system without falling over any kind of problems, without tripping up constantly, or without causing a risk to the business. Removing complexity, supporting new tools like Ansible, interfacing with ICIC, and other management solutions really is key to allow a faster return of investment into people and to get everybody up to speed quick. The third part is resiliency, because everything else doesn't match up when the system is not operating. You entrust us with millions and millions and millions of dollar in transaction volume every single second. Resiliency is paramount. The quality is paramount, and we continue to strive and improve in this area to ensure that we don't impact your critical operation. With that, I think we are pretty much at the end of the presentation. Thanks to Matt, thanks to Frank.
Yeah, have a good rest of the week. Like I said, I see some of my team over here, a couple over on this side. Use them as much as you can so that they get their worth of travel. But I want to say thanks for everybody this week, and have a good bunch of sessions.